firestorm around President Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin. Today, the president moved to clarify his comments that cast doubt on the Russian meddling in the 2016 election and the president's support of U.S. intelligence services.
We have never been in a worse relationship with Russia than we are as of a few days ago, and I think that's gotten substantially better. And I think it has the possibility of getting much better. I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there. It should have been obvious. I thought it would be obvious, but I would like to clarify just in case it wasn't. In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't, or why it wouldn't be Russian. President Obama, along with Brennan and Clapper and the whole group that you see on television now, probably getting paid a lot of money by your networks, they knew about Russia's attempt to interfere in the election in September, and they totally buried it.
Bingo. That last point, of course, is lost in much of the media's frothing, hysterical coverage of the controversy these past 2 days. I've never seen anything like it. But can President Trump successfully quell the rage from his critics? Some on the right, a lot of those neoconservative never-Trumpers, and on the left. Joining us now with reaction, Matthew Rajonsky, who's a Russia expert, director of the Wilson Center's Kennan Institute. Don Bramer, a former intel officer, along with Dr. Waleed Phares, a Fox News foreign affairs analyst. Great to have you all on. Don, I have never witnessed a meltdown, purposeful meltdown on the left and some on the right after this summit in Helsinki. The president comes out to clarify his remarks today, and it wasn't good enough. Wasn't good enough for the media, wasn't good enough for Democrats, and as we'll get to in a few moments in my angle, it wasn't good enough for President Obama, although he spoke before the clarification. Your reaction?
Well, is it ever going to be good enough? I mean, as the president said, he could part the Red Sea, and it would never be good enough. You know, it was a gaffe. He messed up. Who hasn't made a gaffe on the global stage? I mean, President Bush, he got sick in Tokyo. If we forget, President Obama, he bowed before the Saudi king. So it was a misspoke.
Oh, JFK, Khrushchev, as our friend Craig Shirley pointed out last night. Waleed, the idea that the president of the United States is like working as a secret mole for Russia on the world stage in Helsinki and is really trying to conspire with Putin to undermine American interests as he's hitting the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, as he kicked out 60 diplomats, as he continues sanctions, as he sent lethal weapons to the Ukraine. His actions against Russia have been tougher than Obama's across the board. And yet all of this is lost on the Trump-hating media and also, of course, the Democrats. I've never seen anything like this, honestly.
Laura, the problem is that we have a president who needs to handle his mission, any president, of international security. That's why the summit was supposed to address Ukraine, the Baltics, Syria, many issues in Africa, in addition to the nuclear matter, which is extremely important. And on the other hand, we have our American politics being displayed in Helsinki. That shouldn't have been the case. The debate about our U.S. politics should have been in Washington, not addressed there. But my concern now is that many of the countries with whom we are going to be partnering or containing are looking at us as undecided. If they cannot decide with Russia and with other powers as to how to solve this crisis, we're going to lose.
Matthew, your reaction?
Yeah, my sense is that the Russians from the very beginning, obviously they've mucked around in American politics, but their goal here was primarily to weaken the United States. And when you look at a president who faces almost certain opposition from Congress on anything he tries to do, in his view, to advance the American national interest vis-a-vis Russia, he's not going to be able to get it done in Washington because he's going to be blocked by Congress. That's mission accomplished for the Russians if their goal was to tie the hands of the President of the United States. Now, I think this is going to backfire on Russia because in the long term, the United States is the leading world power, and to get the status and recognition that they need to be able to cut deals with the United States. So they have, in effect, hamstrung, yes, the President, but also their own ability to cut the deals that they need to cut, whether it's on, as Waleed very correctly says, Ukraine, Syria, or nuclear.
That's a good point. I want to share with all of you this series of hysterical reactions on the part of the usual suspects. claiming that now we're at a, quote, national security crisis because of what happened in Helsinki. Let's watch.
The fact that the president, in this very weak performance, kowtows to Putin and accepts his version of the facts, I frankly think that's a national security risk.
We now have a real national security emergency in this country.
This is a national security crisis, and the president of the United States flew all the way to Finland, met with Vladimir Putin, and basically capitulated.
What substantive issue, Don, did the president capitulate on? We stopping sanctions? No longer arming the Ukrainians? Are we doing any other things but bringing back diplomats that we've expelled? What did he do?
No, and not one thing did Putin walk away with. He walked away with a few good minutes of press that he can go home and build his propaganda machine. You're absolutely right. Those 60 diplomats, they're still gone. That Washington consulate, still closed. We've increased lethality with our 2nd Brigade in Germany. We've put 30mm weapons right on the front lines to go against his machines. So what did he get? He got a few good minutes on press.
Waleed.
Look, I think that the national security threats that we are going to be facing are really what's happening now in Syria. The Iranians are taking the borders all the way to Israel. Iraq tonight is falling apart with all these demonstrations. Iran is moving across.
They talked about that, the president said. They addressed the issue of Iran behind closed doors.
Laura. Let's the two presidents, all other leaders, address the national security or the international security issues, and then at home we have our.
But the left doesn't care, Waleed. You're acting like this. I'm sorry, but the left does not, frankly, care about that. It's get Trump, kick him out of office, impeach him, whatever you can do. That's what they're focused on. So you're making this really good cerebral argument about geopolitics. What's going on, and what you're hearing from these senators is outrageously irresponsible. There are serious issues at hand. And to claim that the president is the poodle of Putin because if a few verbal missteps, as if Obama didn't make missteps. How about his disappearing red line, which we're going to get to in a moment? That was a substantive misstep. Matthew, your reaction to that? It's a national security crisis that we spoke with Vladimir Putin after Obama spent 8 years trying to do a reset that never happened.
No, I think that the starting point for this debate is really partisan politics in the United States and the genius of Russia's meddling. Whatever it was exactly that they did, they targeted our weakest point. They knew that this is stirring up a hornet's nest, and it puts the United States in a position where instead of driving hard bargains on, for example, Syria, we've got to get Iran out of southern Syria. Russia is very interested in seeing Assad regain control. So if Russia just gets the part it wants, we don't get Iran out of southern Syria, we can't advance the security of the state of Israel in that region, then we lose. And again, a president who's got his hands tied on foreign policy, who's got the hill out to get him, is going to have a very hard time doing that. That's a win for Russia.
And by the way, despite the president's verbal snafus, missteps, the last 24 hours have seen these dangerous hysterics over Russia and astounding historical illiteracy at the same time. Here's just a sample. The Washington Post blared, "It's not wrong to compare Trump's America to the Holocaust. Here's why." How about this from Politico? "Putin's attack on the U.S. is our Pearl Harbor." And then this gem last night on MSNBC.
I would say that his performance today will live in infamy as much as the Pearl Harbor attack or Kristallnacht.
I mean, I don't even have words. I keep saying I don't have words for this. Waleed, Kristallnacht or Pearl Harbor, 2,900 Americans died at Pearl Harbor. I'm sure many Jewish Americans would have something to say about Kristallnacht.
Unfortunately, when our domestic politics are that deeply divided, what we are going to have is a much more dangerous situation. This whole file will end in a few months, let's say a year. But the results that we see on the ground internationally, we're going to pay for that if we're not united against them.
Don.
Well, I completely agree with Fali. We've got to move forward from this. As long as we stay divided, then all of our adversaries continue to win.
But is the intel community demoralized, crippled, upset about what Donald Trump did in Helsinki? I mean, that's hard to say, generalized, but that's what you hear from the left. Oh, he's destroying the morale of the intel community, as if the intel community is perfect. We screwed up a lot along the way. For decades, we've gotten things wrong. Cataclysmic intel failures, but a lot of successes, too. I mean, that's just the way life is.
Well, The Cold War would have never decreased had it not been for the intel community and the professionals we have. Sure, mistakes are going to be made, and you're going to have people who are better at their job than others in the intel community, just as you do in any profession. But I think at the end of the day, most intel professionals, they move forward, they know their job, they do it right. Whatever happened in the world state of politics, they put that behind them because they've seen this before.
Yeah, and it's the heads of the intel agencies and the things that people like Brennan are saying, traitorous, treasonous. When a former CIA chief is going to that level of rhetoric about the current president of the United States, no wonder President Trump thinks that when he was running for president, this guy was working to try to prevent him from being president. I mean, we're going to treason. Honestly, that and my old friend George Will had a very unfortunate column today. It was called, I think, Erect. Do we have the full screen of it? I think we do. It's called The Sad, Embarrassing Wreck of a Man. It's always personal, too. America's child president had a play date with a KGB alumnus who surely enjoyed providing daycare, blah, blah, blah. Again, very personal. Matthew, close it out for us.
Listen, Laura, if I had the president's ear, what I would tell him to do right now, he's got some really smart people advising him, have his senior national security officials work out a good deal with Russia, whether it's on getting Iran out of Syria, whether it's a renewal of nuclear arms control, which we have to do. Russia is the world's other major nuclear power. We have to do that.
They're doing that,
and
I understand.
Call everybody's bluff by bringing that deal back to Washington and saying to the Senate, look, you're going to ratify it or not. And then it's on everyone's record. Did they support or did they not support a good deal for the United States of America? And they can't play politics with it. Or they can, but they pay the price.
Right. And that's a substantive determination. Then everyone can put their cards on the table. Right. And I think they are working on that.
Strategic maturity, that's what we need.
Exactly. Excellent panel, guys. Thanks so much.